All right. Wonderful to see folks. Well, the few that are showing faces, I will say from the presenter's perspective, it's always nice to actually see faces, right? So to just present to iPhone 123 and names and all of that, it's lovely to see faces. Even nicer to see waves and all of that, right? So yes. So this is always a nice thing. So just in the interest of time, I will try and get started promptly, and kind of these are always titled Meet the Director events. I think it's, I think we should, it's really meet the program, right? So it's not just, this is less about meeting me than getting hearing from me about the program and what it is, and getting a little bit more information, right? So most of you, I gather have looked into the program enough and know a bit about it, but I'll just say today, in terms of what we want to talk about, I briefly want to go into what I say here, do we believe, but I think what makes us special and different. I say briefly on this because I think this is a lot of the information most likely that you have either heard from me in videos, read on the website, gone through that, and have a bunch of information. So I don't want to use this time to regurgitate what you've already read out there. I think this is it's a good opportunity for me to try and provide a little bit more information, maybe to fill in the gaps, right? So I think that's really the second part under there, is really to talk about, okay, when we look at the program, who, the question a lot of people ask is, okay, who really fits the program? I know you say everybody, but who really, right? And then what's the right profile, right? Now naturally everyone's kind of like, okay, how's this going to help me to fill out my application? And I could just, the purpose of this isn't so you can backwards engineer the perfect application, right? This is really just sharing information and transparency. And one thing that we say all the time, and you'll hear from me if I happen to be the person that interviews, that this is all about a matching, right? So we want to make sure that it's the right person for the program, and that we're the right program for you, right? We never take the approach of just a hard sell and get anybody in the door that we can. That's just not who we are, right? Then going through this, I want to just elaborate a little bit on, okay, why, right? So if these are the profiles and these are the characteristics we have, why do we feel like this, right? And then we'll kind of go on from there. So I think the picture that most of you have seen, that I talk about all the time, but it's one of these, I'll say it once more because this really is who we are, and this is really just a big part that underlies everything, right? So I mean, we everything about us is built on these three pillars, right? So it's all academics, practical application, and our community and the peer engagement. And we absolutely live right at the intersection of all of these, right? So we're not shifted one way or the other. Obviously, people are stronger in one area than another, but the reason I put this up here is this really underlies everything in terms of, we want people that value all three of these, right? So it's not, what I usually say is, it's not, here's 3, pick 2. It's not 3, pick 1. You have to recognize all of these, appreciate them all, and want them all, right? Another picture that my guess is you've seen in one form or another, or you might have heard me talk about, but again, it's something that I think is really valuable to see again, and it's a snapshot of our current cohort, right? So when we look at this, right, it's this beautiful, colorful pie chart, lots of graphs, and lots of colors means lots of different dimensions, right? But this is more than that. It's something we're very proud of, right? So it really does speak to a lot of the dimensions of diversity that exist in our program. And obviously this is going to be extremely small on your screen, so let me spell out what all those, Abraham, I could see you looking in on this, trying to say like, what are the dimensions of this, right? So what this is, right? So the pie chart on your left there is just the country of citizenship, right? And naturally, the big blue slice of the pie is UK. And this is for this year's cohort. The next one is US, the next one's China, and then it goes from there. Last year, I think the next largest, it was UK, and then I think the next largest slice was actually Nigeria. And so the next largest slice differs year by year. The thing that doesn't differ year by year is, the order of magnitude of the number of slices of the pie, right? That's the important part to take from that chart is we are, credibly, verifiably, absolutely a global program. Right? So this is one of the huge benefits of being a part-time program like this is we can draw people from all around the globe. And this is just something we're really, really proud of. Right? The histogram in there is a histogram, the bar charts of age, right? And this is showing that, yes, we have a large bulk, right? The largest proportion is in the 25 to 35 range, but we have a long tail, right? So we have a range all the way up to, into 65, and we have a large mass, that's under 25. Lots of different experience, right? This all just it ends up being very complementary, right? So this will dig a little bit more into when we think about really who fits. The sort of bottom middle one is looking at just very, very broad categories of industry interest, with a large one that is just doesn't even fit into one of those, right? And again, we see lots and lots of different interests. The one on the right is our gender diversity. It's one where, we're not at 50-50. I think we've been making large strides. In entrepreneurship, this is something, we have moved the bar, and I think we've moved the bar in a really good way. It's something we want to keep pushing for. The takeaway from this is lots of dimensions of diversity, but again, the question is, okay, but who really fits, right? So still tell me a little bit more of like, all right, that's not everything, right? So let me just speak to very broad categories. Naturally, there's gonna, people that fit can be an experienced entrepreneur, right? So just because someone's an experienced entrepreneur doesn't mean, and especially the experienced entrepreneurs who are in our program are humble enough to recognize that just because they're experienced or successful doesn't mean that they understand everything about entrepreneurship, right? And that's something, the one thing that we don't want is, I'm the experienced entrepreneur, I know everything, I'm gonna come to the program just to tell everybody how it's done. That's not generally the type of experienced entrepreneur that fits our program, right? The type is usually the experienced entrepreneur who says, you know what, I've actually had some good success. And I calibrate this with others who are interested in entrepreneurship. Did I freeze up? So I'd like to calibrate this with other people who are interested in entrepreneurship. I'd like to validate it. I'd like to learn maybe why things have worked, why they haven't worked, right? Likewise, we have nascent entrepreneurs, right? So people who are just starting out on their entrepreneurial journey, and again, might have an idea of, okay, I think I know where I want to go. I think I've got a good idea. I haven't quite figured everything out. I would love to learn from others. I'd love to understand why some things might work. I've heard from, I might even have a mentor, friend, someone who's helping me along the way, but still maybe their experience is narrow, and I'd love to hear a broad swath of experience, right? I'd like to understand really why do some things work? Do they work for me? Might they work for me? Could I offer anything? right? So naturally, people who are working in the field of entrepreneurship fit our program. In many cases, whether it's an experienced entrepreneur or a nascent entrepreneur, they might have zero business background, right? So it might be someone who's just a technology focus, could be computer science, could be biology, could be something else. And actually they've worked on things, but from the business standpoint, they don't really know anything, right? Or know anything. They've only learned it through the school of hard knocks, haven't learned it through, okay, can I actually get something to understand? How should I do this? I know this is how I'm doing it, but is that the right way, right? So there's a commonality here is they just have questions and they're curious, right? It doesn't mean our program is only for entrepreneurs, right? We definitely open ourselves up to people who are involved as, you know, I'll say they're an employee of someone else's organization, right? So whether it's a large corporate, someone else's venture, whatever it is, and they might be seeking to make a transition into entrepreneurship, or they may not. That's okay too, right? So it's one of these things of we are perfectly fine, and we have people in the program who work within a large corporate, and and we've had this conversation and thought long and hard, like, okay, wait a second, maybe this person is actually better suited to an MBA, right? Why would they come to a master's of entrepreneurship? But the key is, if they're in a large corporate, they may be working on innovation. They may be working with accelerators. They may be working with entrepreneurs. They may just really want a deeper understanding of how do entrepreneurs operate, because we need to bring that into our organization. We need to understand this better. We need to be able to look at things differently. And they're deeply interested in how should I go about this, right? That's good for us too, right? So it's not one that we say, oh, no, wait a second. If you're not planning to open a venture, you don't want to start a venture within the next couple of years, sorry, go get yourself an MBA, right? This is one of those things where I reflect back on, my time when I was in industry and I was in R&D, and I was had my R&D organization. And when I reflect back on that, if one of my employees came and asked me, did I want to sponsor them in an MBA or this, for what I was doing and for what I was looking for, I would have wanted someone to have more of an entrepreneurial bent on things. Look at there's a lot of common fundamentals, but when you look at it through an entrepreneurial lens, that's really what I would have wanted as a manager. I see in the chat on this is saying, are there minimum academic qualifications? Yes, these are ones that if you ask me do I know them off the top of my head? I don't. These are ones, at the end of this, we'll have an opportunity. Nikki will be here from the program team, and we'll have other members of the program team and some student ambassadors that can answer a number of questions that I might not be the best person to do. If I answer that question, I'll almost guarantee put my foot in my mouth and say the numbers that are not quite right. So the short answer is yes, always with, there's always I'll leave that to Nikki. So this is kind of when we look at employees and professionals, again, we do have people who, we have some people in consulting, we have people in large organizations, we have people who are looking to transition out, we have people who are looking to bring that entrepreneurial process in, right? The same goes for nascent employees or professionals, right? So someone who may be more recently out of the university, they've taken a job in a large corporate, they'd like to just get some experience at this, but in the long run, they really want to have their own venture, right? They're passionate about entrepreneurship, but they want to get some industry experience. Or again, it could be that it's a nascent entrepreneur looking to bring the entrepreneurial process into a large organization, right? So it's one where within entrepreneurship, we have people that are experienced, nascent within the world of an employee in someone else's company, nascent, experienced. The commonality here is that there's a a passion for entrepreneurship, right? That they are deeply concerned about that. And, at the end of the day, what really matters to us is that whoever's in our program, right? So if you cut across and talk to students, and there's many opportunities on our website, and here today we have a couple students with us. I mentioned people in our program want to learn about the business of entrepreneurship, right? That's who we are. They want to advance their ventures. I have ventures in quotes because the venture, we take a broad definition of this, right? So if you're within a large corporate, you might define your venture as different than the venture of an entrepreneur looking to advance their business, right? To start their business, grow their business. But you may have a small business unit in a large organization that actually is sort of your venture within somewhat large organization. This is a lot of large organizations are looking to operate in such a manner where they can have people have startups inside of the company and get more organic growth that way. So it's how we define the specific venture. We take a broad definition of that. But we want people that want to take active role in this. They want to own it. They want to learn about it. They want to know how to do this well. And we really want people that want to be a part of a community of entrepreneurs, right? Who take joy in helping each other, right? So we are a group that wants to hear from the other person. Even if we're an entrepreneur working on our own venture, we might be doing something that's AI related. We might be doing something that's finance related. We might be doing something that's real estate, insurance related, right? We don't want to close ourselves off and say, no, I only want to talk to people that are in my industry or interested in my things, or I only want to talk to people that can help me. We want people who also take joy in saying, tell me about that. I might have something to offer you, right? So this is a big part of it, right? So it's much more than someone's career position. And I'd say one more thing. It's probably worth acknowledging who does not fit our program, right? So I've said a lot about this. Sounds like, okay, well, wait a second, Jeremy, you're saying anybody fits. You really, at the end of the day, haven't told me a whole lot because you're just saying anybody fits. I can say who doesn't work, right? What doesn't work in our program and who doesn't work in our program are people who just want a Cambridge badge, right? So I really think that if I could get a degree from Cambridge, I put Cambridge is on my resume, this is gonna make me stand out and I'll advance myself. That doesn't work for us. That's because that doesn't end up fitting all of the things I've been talking about, right? That's not someone who takes joy in helping someone else. That's not someone who wants to help and wants to learn and wants to listen, right? We don't want people who say, you know what, fine, it might not be the Cambridge badge per se. I just want the Cambridge network. I want to access the Cambridge network. And that's really what I care about. Again, it's not that we don't acknowledge, how strong and how valuable the Cambridge badge and the Cambridge brand is. It's not that we don't acknowledge or value how strong our network is, but that can't be the main driver, right? And we definitely don't want people, and this generally applies more to the younger student just out of uni, right? So we don't want people that just want to sort of prolong the real world by just getting another degree, right? So that's, well, I've done this and I took this degree and it didn't quite work, and I figured now I'll do entrepreneurship, right? We want people that want to get things done, and if they want to, they're anxious to be part of the real world. They're anxious to make an impact. They're anxious to add value, right? So what does kind of the right profile in terms of the person beyond career position look like? This I would put sort of a broad list, right? And most of these I think shouldn't be surprising. But when I say, evidence, it's not just saying it. It's not just giving lip service to these things. Really have initiative, right? So I often joke about there's a friend of mine, still a close contact, and we were this is when I was back in the US a while ago. So we're at a Super Bowl party at the end of American football season, and as I'm leaving, he's asking me. He said, "Oh, Jeremy," he's like, "we have this idea club. You ought to come. It would be great if you came and joined the idea club. Don't worry, there's no commitment to actually get anything done. You just come with ideas. Remember, like you had that idea. I think you were going to remodel a house." I was like, yeah. My wife, we bought a house, we remodeled it, we did that. Yeah. And then weren't you saying you were going to, like, at some point you might get your PhD? And I was like, yeah, I'm actually doing that right now. And then he's like, I don't want just an idea club. I want to do things, right? And it was one that I was like, we want to be surrounded by people with initiative that really want to make things happen, right? So this is something the people in our program like to get things done, right? They have tremendous initiative, and our students, I'll speak a little bit more to it in a bit. There's, if there's ever been evidence of it throughout the pandemic, it's now, right? Our students have tremendous initiative. Our students have a tremendous desire to do things the right way, right? So what do I mean by this? Our students are not the entrepreneurs who get it done at whatever cost, right? So this is important to us, right? So our students have regard for others. So even if it's more difficult and they need to find a way, they need to think a little bit harder, they care about doing things the right way. That matters to us, right? Naturally, there's a passion for entrepreneurship. I've already said this, right? The last one, though, it's a desire to learn. And the parentheses are important here, right? Regardless of the starting point. So no matter how much you think you know or how much you think you don't know, right? So for many people, it's like, whew, this is daunting. I haven't done anything in business. Right? Others are saying, you know what? I've done a lot in business, right? We have some people on the course who have done an MBA, right? That's not the norm, right? That's not the large bulk of the population, but it does happen. But there's evidence that, like, yeah, but there's something missing, and what that something is important, and that's worthy of a discussion. But it's the sheer desire to learn, right? And that this program is what you want to learn about, and the desire to teach, right? And I can say this, coming from myself, it's, again, regardless of the comfort in doing so, regardless of what the reference point is and the experience in doing so. But this is where the next one, but you want to try, right? Because, for me, that's one of the joys of teaching. You learn by teaching, right? I learn from our entrepreneurs and our students every single time I interact with them, right? And that's, so if you want to engage in that, you want to be a part of that, and our students do. I've already, spoken to a little bit, but our students want to help each other. This is critical, right? This is in many ways the glue of our community. And our students have a tremendous ability to reflect, right? Again, if there was ever a time when all of these qualities have been tested, it's been now, right? And so this is one where, again, I'll talk a little bit about it, but this is, throughout this pandemic, we've been able to see all of these on display from our students. So these are things that I can stand here confidently saying these are things that are important. So again, why is this so important, right? At the end of the day, the program, when I say it's meet the director, this program is not about me, right? This program isn't, I'm not the onus of this program. Our students are, right? Our students are who make this program special, right? And the role that we play in this is making sure that, doing our best to find students that meet these qualifications, that value these characteristics, right? I think, again, I'm speaking a lot about the pandemic because obviously we're in the midst of something that's quite unprecedented, right? It's important to recognize that these qualities are not qualities that we just recognized and we just thought about because of the pandemic. It's important to recognize that we didn't just transition to an online, or we've always been a blended program. We've always had a large portion of our program online. When you have a large portion of the program online, when you're a blended program like ours, when you're a diverse program like ours, when you welcome people of such broad sets of backgrounds, the foundations that, what we believe, the foundation that makes it work, this is why I say it's a key enabler. These characteristics are what makes it work, right? These characteristics are what enable our students to make this program be credible and bring out the best of everybody. So the pandemic has, to me, it's one of, it's difficult for everybody, right? So it's one of these things, I don't want to discount, it's not to say, our students just rolled on and nothing mattered. Obviously, this was tremendously difficult on every academic institution, every student. This has just been a difficult time, right? I do not want to discount this. But it's also been a time when we really get to see the true colors, right? So challenge brings out the true colors in everybody. And, for the whole program team, our students were just an incredible bright spot in terms of watching how they handled this, right? It's not to say that there was not frustration, that there was not, a feeling of loss. A lot has changed, but our students adapted, and the way they handled this was impressive, right? So I mean, if I look at normal conditions, right? The normal conditions bring out everything that is special about Cambridge, right? So these are pictures of our residentials. We have the four residential weeks, and during those times, the program is really a reflection of the collaborative nature that is Cambridge. Everybody working on things together, everyone being curious, everyone asking what if, everyone kind of chatting and hanging out together, right? And coronavirus was an immense shock to this, right? It brought unprecedented times, but it's one of those where our students, when we moved into this, right? So I will show you the top slide here is March. The top slide was March, and March is one where we were, like everybody else, there hadn't been any lockdown in the UK yet. We were just about to enter into our March residential. We had been planning since January, slowly moving towards it being online. We had always sort of been preparing for a hybrid type of environment. And then I think it was just a week before the actual date, we realized we had to call it and move everything online. You can imagine the shock that this would, obviously students know that this could be a possibility, but still when something outside of your control happens, and this is just hard to take. And it's one where when I look back and reflect on how the students embraced that week, right? It's one where the program rolled on, and the value that everybody got from the program, the value, obviously people weren't here in Cambridge, but the value everyone got from one another, the interactions that took place, everyone just sort of said, okay, there's things outside of our control, but let's show our true colors, let's experiment. I remember starting the week off saying, rarely is there a time when we have everybody so well aligned working to figure out how to deliver online education. Let's make the use of it. And our students did, right? And it's one where we've learned, adapted, and the program, will benefit for years to come, not just current students and future students, but alumni of the program. Right, so the top is March. By September, we were able to bring some students back to Cambridge. And so the bottom picture is, we had half the cohort that was here in Cambridge, half the cohort was scattered around the globe. We figured out how we could do this in a hybrid fashion, and people that were at home contributed. People, everyone still was able to connect, even though we had people in Australia still, participating in the time zone gets a little bit difficult from Australia to participate on UK time zone. We had people in Hong Kong, we had people in California. Prior to the week, I remember some folks from California saying, like, look, the time zone's difficult. Do we have to attend everything? And we said, look, we recognize that. Do what you can, right? Do what you can. We'd love to have you there. And by and large, they were there at every single session, right? So they were waking up 1 a.m. their time, attending the sessions, because at the end of the day, it was worth it, right? And so those were things, look, they weren't mandated. These were decisions and choices that, for us, it just, again, brought out the quality of who our students are, right? We experimented in, this is more September, we tried to figure out, okay, wait a second. People said, could we get a little bit more interaction? Could we see the class? Could we see the person who is at home? Actually, not purposely, I'm just realizing this now, that, the person who's shown there on the big screen in front of the class, he was in Australia, right? So this is the person who was in Australia participating in our sessions. And it was one, whenever someone was at home speaking, we could see them at the front of the class. This wasn't something that we had at the beginning of the week, but a student mentioned, hey, could we try this? And, it's not just the students who are entrepreneurial. This was Kirsten, Lara, the whole program team trying to figure out how can we do things to try and do it better, right? All of this has just been trying to find ways to adapt, to learn, to experiment, and to do things better. That's who we are, and that's what we're about, right? And a lot of this is learning that will stay a long time after the pandemic's gone, right? And this is because we're not a program that just transitions online for a short period and then just goes back, we get the benefit of all this learning, right? Which is a huge silver lining in all of this, right? And I'll speak a little bit just to some of the things, right? One of the big ones that obviously in hindsight, it's like, well, that should have been happening all along, is just more frequent opportunities for engagement, right? So we're a program I mentioned, and you've seen, we have 4 week-long residentials spread out over 2 years. First one's in September, the next one's in March. That's, September is always just this huge buzz, and everyone leaves going, oh, I'm gonna miss this. And then it's 6 months later till you come back. That's a long period of time. And then the residential starts again, and there's a huge buzz. But in each of those, there's sort of, it starts with a murmur and then it goes back up. What we've done is gotten a lot better at, okay, can we have industry seminars, speakers, sessions? And really the design is create more frequent touch points for all of the cohort to find an opportunity to get together. So obviously that's worked for us now, and that'll work in the long run. We also then can say, well, wait a second, some of these, yes, there's some that are just tailored toward a current cohort, but there's some that we can do cross cohorts, and there's some that we can invite alumni, and there's some that we could even look at, hey, is there another program? So just more engagement and opportunity for people to interact, to grow their network, to get to know one another. Again, this is stuff that will benefit everyone in the long run. That's not going away, right? But it's stuff that we've figured out and we've gotten a lot better at because of sort of this forced experiment, right? Our residentials were also always really packed. They still are packed. But part of being packed is we would have to run a bunch of industry seminars in parallel, right? So there would be 4 of these in parallel, and you'd have to choose one of those. Well, now we try to say, wait a second, we have that week, and that week's really important, but some of those seminar speakers we can spread out before and after the week, and we don't have to pack everything into that week, and give people the opportunity that maybe they can attend these things before, after, and attend the stuff in the residential, so they can actually engage with the speakers in more of these. Again, that's something that it's worked. You know, we're constantly figuring out the balance and experimenting with. We don't want to all of a sudden just bombard everything outside of the residential because it's a part-time program and people have a lot of else going on in their real jobs or their life. But we can definitely find the right balance to do this. We also get a broad reach of speakers, right? So one of the things with residentials is naturally travel kind of, even in the best of times, is restricted, and you end up with people who are much more centric to Cambridge, which, while Cambridge is a huge cross section of speakers, obviously we're dominant in certain technologies more than others, and obviously we have, there's much more Cambridge alums and there's much more Cambridge centric stuff here. Whereas when we do things online, we have the ability to make sure that we don't become narrow in terms of who we're inviting. We get to get people who are spread out around the globe. Again, that's not going to change, right? So a lot of these are, the last thing I'd say on this is, these are initiatives that all come about working with students, working with a program team, working with the school, and we will continue to work on these. With this, I'm going to open up the floor to questions. I want to thank, because we have 2 of our student ambassadors here, Daniel and Ruby, and they can definitely answer the student questions much better and much more credibly than I can. And I really want to thank their participation. And then we also have Lara, Kirsten, and Nikki here, who can answer the more programmatic questions much better than I can. So Tony, I've seen your question in the chat. I just want to wait for this. So the question was, how demanding is the program? Is it possible to build a startup alongside the program? That is the intent, right? So that's maybe actually, this is a perfect opportunity. Ruby, would you like to kind of chime in on this, right?
Yes, of course I can. I have to say that I am sort of really living through that journey at the moment. It's been really busy. I'm on my 2nd year of master's program. So the venture actually was sort of, I quit my job as being a lawyer, coming from a professional background. I did not know anything about entrepreneurship, and kind of, wanting to learn and wanting to try and desire to, do all those things which Jeremy said, learn and everything. So all of that, I had all of that, absolutely. Then the challenge of, building a startup and, quickly, finding out and learning and growing. I have to say the program is really demanding. And I needed 48 hours in a day, and could work every day and night on startup as well as on the program. But I have to say, the program has been immeasurably, hugely valuable in hundreds, millions of different ways, from forming a team to, for example, validating your concept. So, for example, what I can say about iWarranty as a startup, we were just incorporated in May last year, and since then, a lot of market validation. The program actually reinforced a lot of our learning, and it's trying out and giving the confidence to go out to the market and speak to consumers, customers, our potential customers, and validating and building a team of technology. And also, one of our fellow So I'll go through step by step of product. And so the validation process from the program was really, really like push you to kind of make you think, reflect about everything, and go to market and speak to customers and continuous learning from your end users. That was really complex. And also we entered several competitions and we won almost all of them, and we got funding from the European government. And from 50,000 on sustainability and another 100 to come. So it pushed us. The program was so liberating, and in several different ways. I can't really say how much it was added into iWarranty as a firm, a startup to a business. It evolved over the last year significantly, massive growth and credibility in the market, and also the network of connections you make it through the program is so powerful. One of the team, we haven't officially announced, one of their team, my master's program team member, Valen, he's going to join us as a CTO, which is a huge thing. So you're already not making friends and support network, you also find your co-founders or CTOs along this program, and who are really passionate about what you're doing and continuously validating and your business concept and progressing all the time. So for example, some of the huge benefits, I won't take a lot of time, but I just want to say a couple of things. One is that the enormous positivity and support you get it from the network is amazing, huge. Secondly, the support network through your fellow students you receive is hugely valuable. They are 24/7 available in different jurisdictions, all different countries. You are waking up at 3 a.m. You have a really challenging, pressing question in your mind. You send a message, you get a response. So it's like 24/7 available, somebody to answer your question from different country. That is an amazing thing. And so you are, you have the network through the WhatsApp and everything huge. So that friendship and the bond is amazing. That you may have a wider sort of Cambridge network, but this immediate network of friendship and the collaborative way we work is amazing, which is hugely valuable. And they are your first test users of your product, and you can always go to them. They give you really honest feedback. It's an amazing network you're building. I'm willing to try, because as coming from a professional background, I was really scared and I was very perfectionist. So was wondering that whether I should even go to market with the imperfect product. So through the program, we learned that you need to go out there and get customer feedback, and the importance of validation and speaking to your customers is huge. And also from the funding network and the support network from Cambridge Angels, and beyond that, the international network you can access. Through the program, you learn a lot of financial models, marketing, blue ocean strategy. Every one of them, I have to say, lots and lots we applied to our venture, and we are getting ready to launch. We haven't launched. So we are also part of Cambridge Accelerator program. So that itself is another boost. Like you're on a master's program, you're running a venture, you're part of an accelerator program, you are like pushed every day to a different level, but it's really good. So you're growing fast and you're learning fast, and you have to be really like open to learn. But you can do it. I mean, I'm doing it and I'm still sort of a lot of wrinkles maybe, but it's really fun, and you have to be really committed to that process and willing and open to learn, because you have the support structure around you through the program.
Thank you so much for that, Ruby. That was such a nice account. I really think it's so important, though, to pick up on a very important point that you're making about the network and, reaching out to people. We've got another similar question where somebody is saying, how I'm in IT, well, in a tech business, and how do I reach out to people that are doing, computer science or machine learning? We always have applicants, we always have students that are really interested in that, right? And I think Jeremy probably has a few things to say about that. But what would you say, Jeremy, about networks and how? We're not selling networks here, right? I think this is an important thing to say.
No, it's one of these. I kind of walk that back. Because I don't want to sell it. That's the only thing of, hey, we only come here for the network. Come here. I stand by what I say in terms of you have to appreciate all that we have to offer. I think one of the things that in many ways always stands out, and people are impressed by and why it gets talked about a lot is just the power of all of the people in the community, right? So it gets talked about a lot, the network. You know, when you talk about machine learning and tech, you know, this is one where if I think of, you know, a very powerful node in a network, it's Daniel on this, right? So I'll on this, I just want to say one more thing to the other question. I'll hand over to Daniel because that's his space and he can say a lot more about that than I can. But it's on the cross faculty, right? Because these are the related questions of how do things work cross faculty. That's a little bit different than just within the community. Within the community of students, obviously students can connect. I think cross faculty, I would make that a broader question of between departments or within Cambridge. Generally, the way that works is, and I'd add on initiative. There are people, and what you generally find is if you have something interesting and you're willing to take initiative and you reach out to someone and say, I'm working on this, and you have a compelling thing to talk about, would you mind having a coffee? Would you like to have a coffee? That's usually, or in these times, would you like to have a call or a chat on something? You find people are generally willing to. And this is also where the power of other people, and whether it's your mentor, whether it's other faculty or other students, is to bring up, I'm trying to find someone who can help me on this. Can you point me any direction? And then you're willing to, the first person you reach out to might not respond, but chances are you'll find someone that will, right? I don't know, Daniel, if you have anything to add on the machine learning is your space.
Hi, everyone. Yes, I mean, what I loved is just the mixture of like having the chance to do academic stuff. I mean, we've done that random forest, which basically predicted what makes a successful entrepreneur and whatnot, right? And it was a super interesting machine learning analysis. And thanks to this master, I met Jeremy, I had these possibilities. But on the other hand, you also learn really what you're practically doing every day, how to abstractly understand these principles and apply them. This was really important to me because I was building two ventures. One of them scaled very well, the other one didn't, right? And the masters really helped me to like understand the principles behind that and why things didn't work out and why some things worked out. And with every year, it becomes just clearer and clearer. And the master has sparked all of this. So I really enjoyed that. And it was for me incredible to like have the possibility to do all of these things at the same time. So I did get machine learning. I did get interesting academic literature, and I got the chance to, next to that, build my venture and do things practically. And I think that's really a combination you don't really get anywhere else.
Yeah, thank you, Daniel. Someone, I think Tony's there, is to show slides or a sneak peek of the material covered in the program. I'd argue it's, when you look at, if you want to look at certain theories, I don't think you're going to get theories that are, only the secret sauce theory that is secret to Cambridge and you'll never learn anywhere else. I would not be the person to tell you that, right? So it's not at all that you're gonna, no, you're going to learn about blue ocean strategy and you're going to learn about effectuation only from us. No one else has seen that. I think that's not the point, right? But what it does matter, and what really matters in our program, because even if you look at some of the fundamentals, a lot of the fundamentals, there's similar fundamentals that you could find in an MBA program. There's similar fundamentals that you'd find in most any program. It's the lens and the discussion that they're brought to light with, right? So how do you take those and how do they become meaningful to you? So if I just show you a slide, first off, my slides, I try not to use a lot of slides. I'd rather have discussions about what they mean, why they matter. And I'd like to have discussions about how do these matter to you, right? And so what makes it unique comes back to the discussions that we have about those. The theory itself, that, I'm not, you can read the paper, I could point you to the paper, I could point you to the textbook, and you could do that on your own. The value isn't to show you the secret theory that no one else has found. The value is to make it meaningful to you. right? So a lot of that is, I think in our teaching, even online teaching, it's not just the text that you read, it's the discussion that happens in the discussion forums with your peers, with the faculty chiming in on that, in the webinars of how are you going to try and grapple with this or that. It's the discussions that matter, right? So the discussions of a program like this, it's the community, it's the students, it's the student body. So I think it's an important distinction, because I would never try to tell anyone that no, you're going to have secret access to content that no one else can offer. You can only see it here. And that's not at all what I'm trying to get across, right? On the specific application questions, yes, Mordecai is one where, I'd like to be proud that we've sort of graduated him onto, he's gone on to work at Ernst & Young. And now we have Ann Hayworth is our new program administrator. And so she will be the one. But I think if you go to the website, there's a, Nikki, there's an email address.
Yeah, it's MST Entrepreneurship at JBS, but I've just put that into the chat box, so everyone should be able to see that.
Thank you.
We've got one question, which, I think maybe we can bounce to Ruby, actually. Can you give an example of how to bridge the gap between academic and practical? Actually, maybe as a bit of background there, I was taking videos of our students over the summer, and Ruby very kindly volunteered to be one of our students that we recorded. And I just love her story of, discovering pivoting and the impact it had on her business. Do you want to talk about that, Ruby?
Yes, of course I can talk about it. So my startup was very much of an ideation stage when I started the MSc program. So then we went through the discovery of speaking to customers and then developing a prototype and putting in the hands of whom we thought actually would be, it is very much consumer focused, because so my tiny bit of about my startup is that it's technology startup, but it's actually originated from as a consumer, my problem, and I faced, and then I thought I experienced that pain. I wanted to validate and see whether other people experience a similar problem of warranty management and missing out on a warranty claim. So initially our thinking was that we'll go directly to the route to market to consumers and put out a prototype build and put in the hands of the end user consumers. We did that, and initially then we realized that there's no money immediately we can get from them, so we have to make we had a prototype, and then we were really in a position that we thought, okay, this is a route to market we are going. Then we didn't really have any to show investors. There's no money coming from them. So we went and started speaking to manufacturers. Everyone said to us, oh, if you go to manufacturers, they will not like this because they will see this as a threat. So we were just really daring enough from, the master's program, you should validation. Validation was one of the really key messages. So we went and spoke to manufacturers of different sizes, and we found a niche opportunity between, manufacturers who would like to work with us, because they say this warranty management was a really cost-intensive activity for manufacturers. So then we have to, pivot to, address the problem, to change our direction, to build something for the manufacturers. So it was really complex, because there were two manufacturers who wanted to try immediately, or a small to medium sized one. And then we were working 24/7, and also we had deliverable for Cambridge program, master's programs, and we were building with the outsourced team of technology service providers to show them, demand the product, to show, is this what you want? They continuously sort of getting that feedback and incorporating that feedback. It was just, I have to reach out to Monique, one of the program, one of the professors, lecturers for the master's program. I had to come to Cambridge and had a face-to-face meeting, saying, what is this pivot all about? How is it going to impact, my value proposition and the vision for the company? What do I do? So it was really nice to have Monique spend an hour with me to explain to me the concept. And, were really afraid at that point to make a change in direction, or whether I had to be very stubborn and stick to my original plan. So, but we did decided to change, but which really kind of gave us a huge, kind of a validation and as credibility with investors. So, which was really an amazing sort of liberating moment for us. Yeah. So is that anything?
No, that's perfect.
Yes. Yeah. So that was thinking, and I think I saw another question about balancing. I'm not only a student and entrepreneur and everything, I'm also a mother. So it is just a very challenging thing for me to balance all of that with academic. The program is extremely academic and a lot of theories, and you learn a lot. So for me to be a mother and having to cook and to make sure that you also have to collect and run around and also trying to build a startup, it was a really challenge, but it's a real kind of balancing act. But I did it, and I still have a very happy daughter, still doing it. And so it's very interesting, but you can do it.
Wonderful. I think the other question here was, on major project and even more on the bridging. A lot of the bridging happens when Ruby's talking about all the academic content. The academic content only really becomes meaningful when you try to figure out how to apply it to your own world, right? So a lot of the bridging from, academic to real world, that's actually where the real learning happens, right? So it's one thing just to, in an academic setting, it's all purposefully, it's going to seem very simple and it might seem very abstract, but how do you translate that into the messy world that is entrepreneurship, right? Entrepreneurship is by all means a very messy and complex world. And the part there is you're not alone to do that, right? So to do that on your own is fairly daunting, right? You have other people to lean on, and you have other people to talk to say, no, I know you feel like you can't do that. That's exactly how I felt too, right? And sometimes there's comfort in knowing that, okay, we all feel a little bit lost in this, and that's actually okay. If we felt too comfortable, chances are we're not working on something that's that different, right? So, this is a big part of it.
I want to add one more thing to that. Sorry, one more thing I want to add is that application to the theory and practice you learn from the course to a real life project is really, I mean, we are living through that. It's a huge value add. And also the program provides such a great structure. When you encounter all these really uncertain world of the startup on one hand, then you can always, you're coming in the hardest part of a startup, the first 2 years, that's what I've been told. We are going through that journey, and you have provided this program provides such a great structure that you can actually, some of your concerns are actually also some of the issues that you've been learning through the program, which provides such a comfort, like a learning of that one and application. It's really incredibly, so it is really, applications really make such powerful. The program becomes really live through that journey.
Thank you, Ruby. And that's a good segue to one of the recent questions, looking at the structure of classes outside of the residentials, right? And this is one where, there is a lot of work, but it's flexible in terms of how and when you do it, right? So it's not classes that, okay, at this set time, everybody needs to get online and attend that. Each one of the modules has a fortnightly release of content. And those are the units. And on a fortnightly release, you have content to go through, videos to watch, exercises to work on. You can post into discussion forums. I'm in the midst of teaching a module right now. There's a good group that kind of does that, is pretty much in lockstep with the releases. And then there's students who, are doing it at different chunks because there's different things coming up in their lives and they couldn't work on it during that period of time. So, things are a little bit, I'll say, more lumpy, right? So it's not just a smooth, even load. They have to work on and catch up and then do it. That's up to you how you want to do it. That is the flexibility afforded in a part-time program. Obviously, there's benefits for level loading in terms of the amount of work, but that's up to you. So the weekly schedule, that's your weekly schedule, and it's going to have to adapt to life the same, as Ruby's painted a rich picture of a busy life, right? Of having to figure out how to make it work for you. This again comes down to we're not going to dictate that, nor should we ever think that we could tell you what the right way to do that is. That's up to you. Yeah, Daniel, if you want to, because we haven't had a chance.
Yeah. I'm happy to take this. I was doing two things: a non-profit and for-profit venture. My for-profit venture had 5 people part-time, non-full-time, and throughout the program it became 3 people full-time. And a non-profit which had like 70 people actively part-time, and at the end of the program 125. So it does work, like starting with an existing team. I hope that answers your question. Yeah.
And I'll say there's some people, we've had, there's a number of examples now. This isn't, again, it's not the broad thing that you can just make it a rule, but there's people that came to the program, might have been working on a venture on the side, met someone in the program and started a venture with someone that they met at the first residential in September, right? There's people that have entered the program with a notion or an idea, right? There's people, right? So there's the phases of the venture chain, or that's wide variance there, right? I think the two ambassadors we have today are definitely two with ventures that have are out there and working, and by all indications are really showing great success, right?
So Eddie, I want to add one thing. I was by myself when I started, and then everyone else in the 6 members we have at the moment, we actually build along the way. So it was really hard to, as a one person, to do and enter several competitions and everything. Then I built the team around me. I found my co-founder, as well as now one of the team members who will be joining is a CTO from my classmate, one of them, and other team members who actually joined along the journey. So I started by myself. That's also possible.
Yeah. And on that, I remember I guess it's 2 years ago, at one of the pitch events we had, I remember, listening to a number of Daniel's classmates, and so it wasn't his ventures, but I remember a number of people saying, "Oh, and I've met this person, and they're going to be joining my venture. Daniel introduced me to them." And then I met this person, Daniel introduced me to them. They're going to be on my venture. I met this, and I'm looking around, I'm like, okay, they haven't made it to Daniel's ventures, but he apparently seems to be the person connecting all these people for team members, right? So that happens too. There's something critical in that, right? So I don't think you should always expect that everybody should always agree, and you should also not. I think you have to be careful to say just because the mentor said it's no good that it means, so because they have experience, they know all, right? So what's critical, I always hope that someone is on my team. I want people, if they don't believe in something, to tell me that. Let's have a discussion on why. Let's see if we can figure out, okay, if I think this is going to work and you think it doesn't, why? Can we understand why, right? And can we dig into that? Because the answer might lie somewhere in between, or the answer, there could be something, maybe I haven't been clear. So maybe someone's understanding it completely different from what I actually said, right? So there's always what I try and do, I always reflect back to someone what I actually hear, right? So maybe you told them something, but they heard something different, and it's not, so there's a number of different ways that can go. It shouldn't just be that, they have the answer and full stop, right? So one of the things you'll hear from me throughout, the program is not about just answers, right? The program is about learning to ask questions, right? So very, very often, it's much more powerful to ask a really good question than it is to provide an answer, right? So the answer is making a lot of assumptions in there, right? Remember, this is a messy world, right? So if you I think I did great then. So it's one of those of calibrating, finding questions, getting to the root of why. There was a question in there also on the mentor and the major project. Importantly, there's also an academic supervisor, right, is for the major project. So the mentor is one thing. The mentor is not focused on the major project. Now, naturally, there's going to be overlap and people, it's not, they're not excluded from it. But you have an academic supervisor, right? So this is one, I had the privilege of working with Daniel on his major project. I am not his mentor, right? He could offer me a whole lot more advice in terms of the venture side of things than I could offer him, right? But when it comes to the academic side, in terms of guiding the paper and guiding the research, that's one where, again, I don't hold that I have all the answers, but I could help ask questions, right? And together, that's what made it, just a really enjoyable experience, right? To go through that. It's the same question that's in the chat. And if it's the question in terms of being located here for the duration, again, it's not expected that you have to be here. We definitely have people who move here or live here. Daniel, when we were outside of lockdown times, Daniel was someone who was in Cambridge and was able to take advantage of the resources, the library, the activities, just the whole network that was here. So because it's a part-time program, you're still a Cambridge student. It's not that you're not a Cambridge student, right? So the program's part-time, you are a Cambridge master's student and have access to Cambridge the same as any other. You're a matriculated Cambridge student, member of a college, all of that. So you can do that. We just want to make sure that we stop short of saying that that's an expectation, right? It's not an expectation. You can access things, and I think you'd be surprised how much you can access from afar. But then naturally, if you're here, you can embed yourself in the network and do things that you can do when you're in Cambridge, right?
I think everything but accommodation and colleges, right? So I think that's the only one you don't, but the whole rest. I lived in Cambridge. I really, really enjoyed it. And everything is just as if you're a normal student. So I went to Christ. I'm a member of Christ College. I went there every day. I was using everything. I had my student card, buying coffee. That works. But I didn't get a room to live at that college, right? So if you want student accommodation, I think it depends on the college. I know some other people who got it. I didn't get it. So that might be something that might happen for part-time programs.
On this, in terms of, the choice in picking your mentor. The mentor process is one where, naturally we don't have an infinite pool of mentors to say, okay, select these. And on that, what we try to do is we look at everybody's application. We look at, your experience, your aspirations, everything that we know about you. And we try to match you with the mentor that can best complement those. So it doesn't mean that it's a mentor who has the same industry experience, because in some cases, that's not the best person for you. It's actually someone who has some other complementary skill. But that is one where we do spend quite a bit of time trying to find the right match. In most cases, this works really well. The goal is that this is it's a relationship on this, right? That you're going to build. The mentors are here because they want to build that relationship as well. In the rare off chance that it doesn't work, we will obviously work with you to try and resolve it. The main thing is sometimes you get someone who says, oh, they haven't met the mentor yet. They see their profile on a piece of paper and says this isn't the right mentor for me. We usually would say, time out for a second, give it a little bit of a chance. We'll explain there's rationale. This isn't just, this wasn't for no reason at all. Give it a try, right? And that's what we find from most of our students. Things we're looking for in an application, I think it's one where we want to know who you are, right? So again, the purpose of this isn't to try and say, okay, I'll go back to it again. This isn't about answers. I can't give you the answers for the application. I can't give you what's going to make us want you. It's more about trying to tell you who really works well in our program. And I think, rather than saying what should you put on your application, what I would suggest is just more reflect to yourself of whether that is you. If you seem to fit all of those are the characteristics you value, those are the characteristics that you think are reflected in you, then tell us who you are. Tell us that, right? I think, the best applications, you can tell when someone is really that person. If you're trying to be someone who you're not, don't write that application, right? That's the best advice. It's like, if you're sitting there nodding like, yeah, that's me, then tell us all about it. If you're sitting there and going, oof, how can I spin that story? Don't try to spin that story, right? That's either it's you or not. And we want you, right? We want that's the best advice I could give on that. The last one, if you decide to leave after the first year, yes. So there is naturally, there is always a contingency in the chance that your things become prohibitive for whatever reason, and you successfully complete the first year, and you can't go on to the second year. Then there is Nick, you'll have to correct me if I'm wrong, postgraduate diploma in entrepreneurial studies that would be the exit award after the first year, provided the first year is successly completed, if that does come about.
I'm speaking here for Nikki, who had to leave, but yes, you're correct there.
Thank you. Yes, and it's one of those, recognizing we're over time, and you have to leave. That's it. Just trying to address the questions that, the minimum thresholds, those are ones that I think they're actually published on the website if you dig into it. Otherwise, please just send an email to the one that Nikki had posted in the chat. Do industry experts, seasoned entrepreneurs take lectures during the course? I think on that, you're meaning, do they give lectures during the course? We have, in terms of it's the students take the lectures. We don't have anyone who's not a student isn't in the course, right? So we don't have people who are non-students also taking the course, right? It is our cohort, but a large a really important part. So that practical bit isn't just taking the theoretical bits and trying to make them work on your venture. A really large part of our course is the number of practitioners, industry experts, specialists that come in to give non-assessed courses, right? So we have throughout all the residentials, and this is the part that we're talking about, we're now adding a lot more in between residentials where we have industry seminar speakers. And they're talking in many cases, right? They're not trying to give you the academic theory. They're telling you what they've worked on and what's worked and things that they're challenged with, and that what's kind of, in many ways that's leading, that's ahead of the academic bit, right? So challenges that they're trying to address, academics are then trying to look at and say, okay, why did they do that? How can we deal with that? But at the coal face of entrepreneurship are entrepreneurs. And so we have them come in to give speaking talks as well. On the colleges, yeah, I can't speak to the differences because I'm not a Cambridge alum, and the Cambridge alums are people who have had that experience, are much better placed to talk about that. I think this is one where, again, send a note, speak to students, do things that way, you'll find out more. I think we've probably at that point, I think, I want to thank Daniel and Ruby and the program team for helping out on this. And then, if there's more questions, I think, we have the videos of our students that are up on the website. So those are very small on your screen, but there's interviews with students. We have student ambassadors that you can reach out to. We would just ask of the student ambassadors, please be, these are people that are volunteering their time and, so please be considerate of their time. Please don't bombard everybody on there. And then, reach out to the email to any other program related questions. Other than that, thank you. And hope to talk more in the future.